Hello, my fellow geeks and gamers, and welcome to episode 2 of Game Master's Banter. Today, in this episode, I will be talking about the most important tool of the trade. It's not a character sheet, it's not a pencil, it's not your imagination or a good game master. It is dice. Every role-playing game that I know uses dice. Some might use cards or other mechanisms to determine a certain outcome, but in the end they all use dice. Even non-role-playing games, most tabletop games, most board games use dice as a system of reference or to determine any variable outcome. Even video games that are way outside of the role-playing game genre, such as shooters or strategy games, might use a variable system that applies to dice. Since dice are so important, there are of course many variations of the size and shape of dice. Even colors can be variable. There is the 4-sided dice, the 8-sided dice, the most common used 6-sided dice, and for most games the important 10 and 20-sided dice. There's even 2-sided dice, 1-sided dice, which are very interesting to use, and 100-sided dice. For quick reference, these are usually referred to as die 4 and die 6, or when you need to throw multiple, it is for instance 3 die 6 to indicate you roll 3 6-sided dice and accumulate their outcome. For instance, for weapon damage or determine how often you hit something. There are also systems that use other type of dice generation. There are apps on your phone or on your tablet or laptop or PC or whatever you're using. I'm pretty sure you can find them on consoles as well, that roll the dice for you. These are digital dice rollers. I personally prefer not to use them because I just like the feel and the sound of rolling my own dice. There are also other ways to roll dice. I roll them on a flat surface, but there are dice towers where you throw the dice in the top and the result falls out the bottom. There are boxes that you shake and roll your dice out of. There are satchels that you shake and throw and then pick out a dice, and that is the number that is available, that is rolled, so to speak. Like I mentioned, I personally prefer to roll them on a flat surface. This is interesting for multiple reasons. The prime reason that being as a game master, I sit behind my screen so that I can't see the statistics I have for my monsters or the eventual outcome of the damage. They can also not see the type or amount of dice that I roll so that they can't plan ahead. Like if they see me constantly rolling 4 6-sided dice for damage, then they will calculate what the odds are of them taking a certain amount of damage before they have to retreat or apply healing. And the threat of rolling dice behind a screen is that they hear dice rolling. They see me physically roll the dice, so they know something has occurred. Most people would try to avoid this due to interests of metagaming. Metagaming is something that I will discuss later on, but in its essence, metagaming is using player knowledge as character knowledge. Like getting asked to make a check to see if you perceive something and failing. Metagaming would be starting to play a bit more cautiously. I trust my players that they don't metagame, so I can roll freely. 9 out of 10 times I don't even sit behind my screen. Except for things like boss battles. They have to be made interesting. When rolling behind the screen, they hear the dice. They know something has happened, like I mentioned. But they don't know what. And when you use a digital app, you're just behind your phone, clicking away. And whether they see it or not, there's no sound, no feel to the dice roll. And with a box, you're just shaking. I have myself lucky dice, and I feel that if anyone else uses them, or that I shake them in a box, that they somehow lose their mystical power. This is, of course, all a side effect, a random chance. Dice aren't better or worse than other dice. Lucky dice don't exist. It's all in the mind. Yet we still use the term. Yet we still have our preferred set of dice. We have our own rituals to keep their luck in them. Some might even say that they pray to something called the dice gods. There are rules to appease the dice gods. It is an interesting concept, and for those who want to know, you can probably just Google the dice gods and find out everything you need to know. I myself know a thing or two about the dice gods, but I don't do my best to appease them. The only lucky dice I have are in a special satchel, and if my players see me grab one of those dice, they know that stuff is about to happen. My personal favorite is Big Orange. It is a 20-sided dice with a very vibrant orange color. When I use that, it is not because it always lands a critical hit and always does the most damage. It is because always and every time that I have used it, it has been absolutely beneficial to the story. For instance, one of the last times that I've used Big Orange, it determined the outcome of a struggle. The outcome of the struggle was that the villain had lost, but in such a manner that he allowed the hero to escape, because he had failed on his end of the struggle. The villain survived, and so did the hero. But the villain, having lost the struggle, turned to something else to ensure that later on, when the struggle would continue again, he would win. And he did. But failing to succeed in that struggle caused a story element. Or how Big Orange had rolled to see whether or not a dragon would believe the party when the party had told the dragon that they meant no harm to it and only meant to acquire a certain item. The dragon, of course, didn't believe them, because a dragon is a dragon, and a dragon should remain to be ultimate, at least in my personal opinion. I have seen so many people field dragons that stay on the ground and use one attack a turn and things like that, and in my opinion, dragons should just fly around, make best use of their abilities, but that is, again, a discussion for another time, and probably a discussion that you can see all over the internet. I myself have seen at least 3 videos on YouTube that I agree with on the proper use of dragons. But again, this is all determinable by dice. Dice determine everything when it comes to statistics or variable outcomes in any role-playing game. It is the number of hit points you regain from a healing spell. It is the amount of damage you do with your axe attack. It is whether or not you succeed in casting your spell under dire circumstances. It is whether or not the guard believes you after being caught red-handed. it determines most important things to the story that is not the story itself. Of course, there are options where you can forgo the rolling of dice. For instance, if a character has spent 3 hours trying to convince someone that his cause is righteous, and his statistics, but in and of itself, denote that whatever he rolls, it is already higher than the threshold set. Why bother rolling? You have succeeded. I implement this rule every now and again to encourage my players to actively roleplay their statistics rather than just rolling the dice. It is the difference between roleplay and roleplay. R-O-L-E play and R-O-L-L play. Personally, I prefer the former. Role-playing at its finest, where dice are merely a system to be used, not a system that uses you. If there are any questions, leave them in the comments. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. And if you have anything to say, leave that in the comments as well, and I will do my best to react. This has been the episode about dice, and remember everyone, keep rolling.